Irishtown Nature Park for today's walk with Heather Fraser. Heather, tell us a little bit about where we're going today.
Sure. So we're going to start with the map because it's always good when you visit a park, maybe for the first time or maybe for many times if you've been here, to know where it is you're going. So the beauty of Irishtown Nature Park, if you look at the size of the park itself, it's 2,200 acres in size.
Wow.
So it's 10 times bigger than Centennial and Mapleton Park.
Oh wow. Holy.
So if we look at the water body itself, the water body is about 250 acres. So that is about the same size as Centennial Park. So we have a lot of forest land that is involved in this park. We're really only in about 350 acres right now with trails and so on that give people the opportunity to explore. So there is lots of room to expand and have longer trails that are back in the forest in the upper parts and even around the entire reservoir itself. So this park is a large park. It's Moncton's only considered nature park. So lots to explore here, lots of habitats and things that we'll look at today when we go into the spillway.
Okay, excellent. And as we walk today, you're going to tell us more. I see old reservoirs on the sign here. Is that the road that we're about to take?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're going to go in. So this road here that we're going to be on will actually be leading us to where the caretaker's house was originally. So when we get in there, you will see that this actually was the city of Moncton's first drinking water supply. Back in the 1800s, when they turned the water on for the very first time, the water came from Irishtown Reservoir back then. So this park has a lot of history, and it's been with the city for the early 1800s. So it's their oldest reservoir, and now a nature park.
Interesting. All right, well, let's go see.
Okay, perfect.
Now, working with the town, or city, I should say, for quite some time, do you have any, off the top of your head, statistics of how many people might actually use this park every day, or roughly?
Well, if we look at the parking lot, you know, on a good sunny day, that's why they actually had to build the upper parking lot, because the lower parking lot will hold about 100 cars. And so they had to build the upper parking lot because people were starting to park out on the road. And if you know Elmwood Drive, it's very, very busy. Mm-hmm. So they put the second parking lot in. So, and I know we did flyers one year for an event that we were holding here, and we put 225 flyers on people's cars.
Wow.
So it does have the capacity to hold that many if people park, you know, in a good way.
In a good way.
In a good way. Yeah, yeah. So this is kind of a cool area coming in. This is like actually the same road that would have been here a long, long time ago. Of course, it's been upgraded. But if you look at the forest looks different from one side of the road to the other. Mm-hmm. And the reason it does is because we've done a little bit of forest management here way back when. I worked for the city for 30 years, and this was done with horses. So there was a selection harvest that took place because we had a lot of spruce budworm damage in the park back in the early 90s. So we went in with horses and removed the spruce budworm species that were dead and dying and opened up the forest some. And you can see that you have your pioneer species of spruce and pine, and look at all the regen from all the different species that we have in the Acadian forest. So that's the beauty of this park, is we really were trying to promote education and really try to manage the forest for long-term forest health so that the forest could be here for years to come.
When you talk about doing this with horses, can you describe how that works and why horses?
Well, we started with horses because they have the most minimal imprint on the forest floor, and we did it in the winter. And basically we did it with horses because we felt that for people that were going to know what this park was going to become when we started working here, it would really send back that sort of nostalgia in, look at how they managed the forest for how many years they did it with horses before we had any means of mechanical harvesting with a skidder or a tractor or anything like that. So as we started working with horses, of course, people were interested in what's happening in Irishtown Reservoir, what's going on. And it really was at the time about improving the health and condition of the forest, because we knew we were going to put trails. We knew we were going to develop trails around the reservoir. We really wanted to promote this park as a different park for the city of Moncton and really bring in that nature piece that this park has, different than other city parks.
And quite some time ago too, this was out of town. Not
Absolutely,
anymore,
absolutely, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. And when you think of it, in the early 1800s, I guess, when they turned the water on for the very first time to like 300 homes, it was quite a feat to be able to have a reservoir, like you say, a little bit out of town back then, but to be able to turn that on. And from what I understand, the pipe that was laid, like miles and miles and miles of pipe, was laid with people working, like hand labor, and horses being able to bring and haul those pipes to be able to put that system together. So I just thought it was fitting. Let's start and manage the forest with horses first, and then see where it goes from there. So where we're coming now is really a special place to me. This is where the caretaker's house would have actually been.
Okay.
So when we get up here, we'll just stand kind of in the clover and we'll look out to the reservoir. And I often think he had the best view in Moncton, right? Because this is what he woke up to every morning, being able to
Wow.
reside here and live here and manage this reservoir. So his house, that's where the old wellhead was. So he was situated basically here, which is a lovely place to work. And there is an interpretive sign. We'll go over to that in a minute, and I'll show you that's got the history, the true history of the reservoir. But this was definitely a unique area for Moncton, and a big deal when they turned that water on for the very first time. Instead of people having to get water another way, they could turn on the tap and have water.
And that was in the 1800s.
Yes, in the 1800s.
That's incredible to think.
Yeah. So this tree is a tree of significance.
That was my next question.
Yes,
Quite large.
it's a white pine, and I actually cored with my increment borer one of the arms that is now cut off because of damage, but the arm itself was 80 years old. So this
Wow.
tree is well over 200 or more years. So I suspect this tree was here when the caretaker actually lived here and worked here in the reservoir. So that would be a tree of, for sure, significance, one of the oldies that's here. We have many white pine species. They're a pioneer species for our forest that are throughout the park. And those are kind of fun ones to, if you're close enough to just kind of stop and listen and look, because that's where the bald eagles and the osprey will nest. They'll nest up high because they want to be able to see, because their food is there. So if we can be up high and see, when there's activity in the water, then that's where they're going to go for their food supply. So some of the trails, and we'll just be going to the spillway today, but some of the trails that you'll actually go on, like the loop-in trail, that's actually where the horses hauled the wood to the landing. They hauled the wood to the landing here. So we reuse those trails. We said, why would we cut more trees if we don't need to? We might as well reuse some of those trails that we used originally to be able to get the wood out. And so there was no extra cutting that had to be done. And it's kind of nice now to look, because 20 some years later, you've got that regeneration coming up underneath, that diversity of species. And it's really about having all hardwoods and softwoods that grow in New Brunswick to be able to explore. So that's what Irishtown does. That's a little bit different. It's a big area, and it has lots of opportunity to showcase what beautiful Wabanaki Acadian forests we have in our area.
Okay, let's
come over to the spillway. So this is a really cool area as well, because when we had to redo the dam, because of course over 200 years it was starting to erode and we didn't want it to fall in. When they did the plan for it, they said, because we had done a fish study in the reservoir, and there's green eels in the reservoir. So they said, if we close the dam off when we build a new one, and we don't have access for the eels to get up, they'll come up so far in the brook, Ogilvie Brook, and they won't be able to make it into the reservoir. So they designed an eel ladder. So this is the only eel ladder in the province of New Brunswick. It's right here, so on the side. See the side?
Cool.
Side here. So this water runs 365 days a year. And believe it or not, even with that flow, the eels that are down in Ogilvie Brook can come up and up and up and make their way through that to get into the actual water body in the reservoir.
Wow. That's some
With that flow.
serious pressure there, though.
It's a lot of pressure. Yeah, and you'll see there's no gates or anything on this spillway, so basically it really is when the sun comes out and evaporation happens, the water level goes down. There's very little water on the spillway, but there's always water coming through the eel ladder. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the construction, the design of this?
So it really was very much similar to the way it was in the olden days. So even you'll see some of the side rock is still original. So it would have been original rock, and that original rock would have been hand carved stone, because of course they didn't have machinery. So over there too, you see the old stone versus the new cement that was put in. So they tried to keep the integrity of the dam as original as they could, and then do whatever they had to do to fill the holes, and then build a new piece out of the different type of concrete. So they tried to keep as well so that when the water comes in, it comes in but does a turn so that it's not so forceful into the bottom of the brook right there, because a lot of fish and different species will come up to that bottom layer because it'll become a pool, and they just didn't want it to be too fast. They wanted to try to keep it as it was for those years in the past. So they tried to design it very similar to the way it was originally. Yeah.
It must have been such, like even with the original one, such an engineering feat.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely was. And really, when you think of it being the first reservoir that was going to be a drinking water supply for the city of Moncton, you know, the first, and actually where the, there's an area over just a little farther down the trail here that has a place that you can sit under and look out. That was actually where they turned the pipes on for the very first time, was in that dome. So yeah, so they tried to keep as much originality as they could to have that story and have that history of the reservoir. So that's why over here you'll see like a kind of a dome structure, and they have like a lookout that you can use an eye to look down the spillway, and to sort of keep that originality that was here when the reservoir was built.
So Heather, there are many uses for the trail. What are some things that people are doing with it now?
So there are definitely walkers and hikers and bikers. It is off limits. All main trails are off limits to motorized vehicles, of course, because we want to be passive types of recreation. The water body itself is used for kayaking and canoeing pretty well year round, unless of course we have to close it to recreation because of our blue-green algae issue. But I will say that the trails too, the original trails that we made with hauling the wood with the horses, we actually had a partnership with a few groups locally in Moncton back then. One was called Katimavik, which you may know, it was an older program where people, I guess from the age of 18 to 25, would go across Canada and they would have special projects. So they worked on building some of these first trails. As well, we partnered with the John Howard Society, which you might recognize that name as well, where inmates had to give back to the community. So we actually had those inmates, we had about 12, that was working with the contractor that I hired from Sussex to actually work the horses, build the trails, put in the culverts, build the boardwalks, which was a wonderful community effort from those different parties.
I noticed that one of the trails was the John Howard Trail, and I wondered if it was connected.
It was.
Fantastic.
It was in honor of them helping us build those first few connector trails around the reservoir and build the pedestrian bridge across the water supply. And as well, I would mention at the same time that we were working in the park, we started managing and looking at the water quality in the park way back then, over 20 years ago. And we partnered with University of Moncton to help us, because they have special people like Irishtown that knows water better than I do for sure, because my background's forestry. But let's work together and let's look at the water quality, because this could become a park one day, and we want to see what it is that we have, which is part of his work was me doing as well the fish study. So that's why we knew about the eels. And when we built the new dam, it was, let's put an eel ladder in. How cool would that be to keep that succession of eels being able to come up, because we know we have bald eagles and ospreys, so it helps with the whole food chain.
Amazing. Amazing. You guys have really thought of everything. I love this park even more now.
I know. This is why, you know, even a show like this is so important, so people who can't always have you with them to come for a walk
Right.
can listen and learn about the place that they're discovering, because there's so much behind each of these amazing places.
Right, and it really was, you know, even for the city of Moncton and even for the biosphere, really to make education a piece of what people can do when they come. You know, yes, they can go do their hike and their walk and their canoe, but to have that educational option, which we use, you know, here a lot with the schools, because the schools don't have maybe backyards that have forests in them. So look at this big forest. We can bring you here and you can explore and learn in your own backyard, which is lovely. Yeah.
So when they were constructing all of this in the 1800s, do you know, did they bring in talent who knew how to do this, who had done it somewhere else? Was it local engineers?
It was local. Everything
knowledge?
was
People
local.
just figured it out?
Everything was local, from what I understand. And if you want to take a look, we can go over to the the plaque that's over here, and it's got a picture that shows the spillway, shows where the house was that had the turning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's right over here.
This one over
Yeah,
here.
if you want to take a little look. Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
So this is really cool. So this here is what is over there now, if we were to walk, which we can go after. So this here is where where they could turn it on for the very first time. So what your questions to be answered are here. How many homeowners? 200, okay, and 3.25 miles of trench that they had to dig out. It's amazing. So there's the year that I guess it was decided that they had to do something about our water supply and wanted to have a drinking water supply, and the Irishtown Reservoir became that supply.
Yeah, civil engineer P.S. Archibald.
And I think we probably have a street named in his name.
I think
Yeah.
so.
I'm sure we do. I'm sure we do.
Yeah.
I'm sure we do. So there's when it was turned on for the very first time, which must have been
So
quite
essentially
something.
a year.
Yes,
Only a year.
That is
Yeah.
Oh my
incredible.
goodness.
That is incredible. And then the other thing to note here is that this park stayed active, or not the park, but the reservoir itself stayed active as a drinking water supply. And in 1914, they built McLaughlin Reservoir as a backup.
Okay.
Because again, our city was starting to grow. So they thought, well, we won't probably have enough drinking water here, so we always should have a backup. So they built McLaughlin Reservoir, and McLaughlin Reservoir was their backup reservoir until 1962. And then they decided we better have another one because the tri-community is growing so busy that they opened up the Turtle Creek Reservoir, became the main reservoir. McLaughlin stayed as a backup, and this became surplus.
Okay.
So when I started first with the city back in the mid-'80s, my very first job was to look at this reservoir and say, what can we do with this wilderness area that's 2,200 acres in size? Is there something that we could make unique for Moncton? So I'm so happy to see that, look what it's become. Some of the old trails that we used with horses and other mechanical means to improve the health and condition of the forest are now trails, which is lovely. And the amount of people that are using the park is really increased. Well, you asked the question, how many people? And you can see now, you
Hundreds.
build another parking lot. And really, when you look at the map, there's other parking lots now. There's 4 parking lots that people can enter from different spots to be able to explore different parts of the park. But for me, the history is very important. And really, on the city side, very forward thinking and saying 2,200 acres inside the city, we need to make this something unique. We have our central parks, Centennial and Mapleton, but where this is out just a little bit, but so beautiful as far as nature and trees, we really need to have something a little unique that
But also
people can enjoy.
Fascinating from a engineering, scientific, even like social justice, equality. Like there's talk here about a strike that happened because of the workers having to come out of the city, and the fact that only like 50 to 100 people, that's all that was working to create this in that short a time.
year,
All of
yeah.
it is just
It's
fascinating.
amazing. Yeah.
Before we wrap up talking about today and Irishtown, what are people using it for now besides hiking?
So basically, it's the trails. The main trails anyway are multi-purpose. So hiking, biking, walking, stroller. Though no motorized on any of the trails that are in the park. For sure, the water body is used for recreation. So not right now though, because we have blue-green algae in our reservoir. But when it's not here, definitely canoeing and kayaking is very well used here. We have a lot of clubs that do training with their groups, like the Scouts and so on, use it for training. Canoe New Brunswick. So the reservoir is used for that. A lot of events happen here, so different events will happen. Either the city puts them on, or community will want to put some events on here. We've had a really good 2 years ago, or before COVID, we had a geocaching event here that brought 350 people from all over the New England states and our area, and it was wonderful for them to see and explore a beautiful nature park like this. So I think it has lots of potential for more use, in the future as they continue to develop longer and longer trails for people to enjoy.
our travels have brought us now to Boar Park in the city of Moncton. We're right downtown, and as you can see, we're right on the Chocolate River, if you will. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but first I'd like to introduce to you Jen, what is your title with the Fundy Biosphere region anyway? It's everything, isn't it?
I suppose. I'm the executive director of the Fundy Biosphere region. Yeah.
Perfect. And then we also have with us Laurence. Laurence is here with the Sentinel Petitcodiac River Keepers. Welcome.
Hi.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the river. Do you want to start with why the river is chocolate?
We sure could. Yeah, we can. So Laurence, why don't you tell us about the tidal bore and how the river is mixed every day?
So the tidal bore comes in twice a day, and so the water flows one way. When the tidal bore comes in, it goes the other way. So that's what's special about this river. And yeah, so there's a tidal bore coming in once, and they have like a scale, so it goes from 1 to 4. So 1 is like a small wave, and 4 is like a big wave. But usually we get like maybe like 1, 2, maybe 3 around the full moons, because the tidal depends on the moons, cycle of the moons, and the seasons and weather. So yeah.
Yeah, so right here, we're not on the coast, we're a little bit farther inland, but we can actually see the tides coming in every day. So it's pretty cool to see the tidal bore. And it's significant because the tidal bore used to be quite small. When the causeway was in and the gates were closed, there wasn't a lot of change in the direction of the river. But in 2010, they opened the gates, the bore became bigger. And then more recently, when the new bridge was put in and the causeway was taken out completely, the river has really returned to its state of health. And then that's why we see these like large changes in the tidal bore. But of course, it's always based on the tide cycle and what is coming up from the Bay of Fundy. And it's muddy because circling back to your question, Tosh, it's muddy because there's a significant amount of silt. And so the erosion that's happening up the bay and the turnover of the tides, it really brings up a lot of sediment, and the sediment stays suspended in the water and as it comes in and out. So what we're seeing is it is dirty water, it's sediment, but it's much more clean and pristine than it ever has been in its history. So, well, not in its history, but in its like colonial history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's healthy brown water,
It's
not
healthy
dirty brown water.
And
it's supposed to be brown and chocolatey.
You know, there's an extensive amount of studies on the river about the types of fish and the fish habitat and the challenges of the causeway that we're in and causing a fish barrier. And it's like kind of hard to believe sometimes to think like, oh, there's Atlantic salmon like right in that water. There's all kinds. There's eels. There's Gaspereau. There's all kinds of things that are returning to the river, and they live in this water because they're adapted to it and it's part of their home. And so we think of it as muddy water, chocolate river, but the fish, they're happy as clams.
Yeah.
Happy as fish in the Petitcodiac. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned, I didn't realize that you judge the bore like on a scale of like 1 to 4 for its height, and that usually we're only seeing like 2, maybe 3, because I see the surfers on the wave and think, wow, that's a big wave. Yeah. And to think that it's not even near the peak of what it could be most times. Yeah. So usually like there's a lot of surfers through the summer, but usually it's a wave between 2 and 3 to be able to surf it. Yeah.
Interesting. And what happens when the bore comes up? Because when the tide changes all the way down in Nova Scotia into the Bay of Fundy, the force is so great that it actually moves Nova Scotia.
We have the highest tides in the world, and the reason why we have the highest tides in the world is because the Bay of Fundy is the Goldilocks principle of being perfectly width and perfectly length, and so the water rushes in, but it also has that added little benefit of the bathtub. So as the water is basically sloshing back and forth within the bay, and then combined with the tides coming in, we get these huge 16-meter tides in the Bay of Fundy, and that pushes so much water up this way that it comes right up the river. And so there are tidal bores across the globe in rivers where rivers are outflowing through fresh water and then the tides come up, but it's pretty rare to have such a huge tidal bore like we have here, and so it's because of the Bay of Fundy and the highest tides in the world. And yes, the geology on each side of the bay is ever changing. The flower pot rocks are falling over. The new caves are being formed at the sea caves because of the erosion of these huge tides, and it's happening on both sides of the bay, both in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia.
Interesting.
So speaking about that history of the height of the tides, that's also significant about where we're standing here in downtown Moncton. We're next to this massive monument to the shipbuilding history of the area and to the mayors of the city of Moncton that really speaks to some of the historical aspects of what's happened with the tides here. Can you talk a little bit about some of the Saxby Gale and the history of this area?
There is a lot of interesting, like this river is really like the river of change, and it has been through history, because there used to be, this area was we were under a kilometer of ice at the glaciation time, and so things have been happening over the last 15,000 years in terms of Indigenous history and then colonization, and then you can see all the mayors of Moncton. But also, if you look down at the Gore Park Amphitheater, there's a blue line all along the wall there, and that's actually the water level from when the Saxby Gale came through. And so there was a huge amount of flooding. That is in part because of super high rains. It was tons of runoff, the highest tides because of the moon cycle. It all came together in a bad way. Yeah, exactly. The Goldilocks principle, the opposite of that. And it flooded most of Moncton and tons of Riverview. And if you can imagine, you're standing down on the boardwalk down there and you look around at the blue line, like it would have been well over our heads. So the Saxby Gale was extremely significant, and there has been an amazing amount of work through the municipalities, through the regional service commissions, the province, to really look at flooding in our region, because we are in the low-lying area next to the coast, and climate change is significantly impacting coastal environments more than other regions. So there's a lot of work that's gone into how we can make our communities more sustainable in terms of runoff and in terms of more appropriate infrastructure, both green and gray infrastructure. So it's a kind of a testament to the past and learning from the past. So you never know what's going to happen with Mother Nature, but we can do our best to try to provide solutions for those kinds of things.
And that's what I love about your program with the Fundy Biosphere region is the amazing places. Laurence has the shirt on today, and it gets people out to, which by the way I want one.
You can have one. Yeah.
It gets people out to these locations to learn the history as well, because I can imagine that a lot of people watching this, even that reside in the greater Moncton area, don't realize the history of this river, and that ships were built right behind us and all along the coast and all the way up to Salisbury as well. So it's a great excuse, if you will, to come out and check these places out and learn the history, because we do, as a region, have an absolutely amazing history.
Yeah, well, and if you think of like the shipbuilding, but you go back even further, like the Indigenous people of this region use the river and its tides in order to get to hunting grounds, to their homes. This river, there's somebody coming along the river right now, actually, in a boat, which is a rare sight. But this river has been used and will continue to be used by the people from this place, and obviously that we want to see it happen in the most sustainable way possible. It might be, yeah, there's a lot of, right now there's not a lot of people on the river, obviously, besides the surfers for the tidal bore. And then there's a lot of, oftentimes the fire department or search and rescue use it for training. And so when we see boats on the river, it's usually like a training exercise or something like that. But the other thing I want to mention too is from here you can see right across the marsh, and you can see the Transaqua, which is the Greater Moncton Wastewater Commission.
That's right.
And that's another success story of the river, because it was upgraded in the last year, like over the last couple of years, where the project is now finished this year. There was a $90 million upgrade to bring it up to tertiary standards, and so what comes out of the wastewater pipes is swimming water quality. Wow. So it's like real clean, and it's very exciting to see that the causeway has been removed. The wastewater treatment is some of the best in the country. The fish are returning. There's tons of research and Indigenous engagement and community engagement in the river, and it really just shows this like evolution of time of how we're starting to again appreciate the natural surroundings and the beauty that we have here. And that's again part of the Amazing Places program, is to get out and see and experience the different places of the region that really give us the history and the stories and the beauty of the place.
Perfect. I think that's a great way to sum it up for this park. Mm-hmm. Okay. Where are we off to next?
We're going to Mill Creek Nature Park in Riverview.
Sounds good. We'll see you there.
Okay, sounds good.
So we started at the Moncton Reservoir with Heather. Now we've moved to a reservoir in Riverview with Heather, and you're going to tell us what's significant about this place.
Right, so this is Mill Creek Nature Park. So as the sign shows, this is in Riverview, and this beautiful park is a 330-acre nature park. So this park is just under development. So they have several new trails that are in place, and they have a new spillway that you'll see where they have a walkway that comes out on the spillway so that you can see what views it has from a higher standpoint. And this area actually had a drinking water supply as well as Irishtown, and it was used by the Army. So the Army actually trained here and used this property, this 330-acre property, to train and use the water body as a source of drinking water when they had their post here.
Oh, wow. I did not realize it had a connection to the Army here.
It did. And then it went surplus, and the town of Riverview purchased it quite a few years ago, didn't know really what to do with the area, and started with a community group, just like Irishtown did, and brought in different experts and trees and different things, which we did an original sort of walkthrough cruise of the property to see what was here and what could be, I guess, developed for Riverview. So it's been in the books for a while, but now it's starting to get developed more and more, which is lovely. So we're going to do a little exploration of Mill Creek, and we'll look a little bit more about the history and how the park is a little bit different than some other parks locally.
Great. Well, let's get walking.
All right, perfect. Now I don't know what it says on this sign. We'll see. There's a few historical signs that they've put up. See, they've got some pioneer pine as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's lovely. Yeah, 'cause the kids are done school now, Jennifer, for the summer.
I know.
Yeah.
Every day Eleanor's like, are you going to work today? I'm like, yes. See, this morning she said, Mommy, could you please say, I'm not going to work today. I'm staying home with you. And then I said, I'm not going to work today. I'm staying home with you. What other lies would you like me to tell you? I was like, ah. Mill Creek is a catchment for a lot of Riverview because it's part of the Petitcodiac watershed that feeds into the Petitcodiac. And so there are creeks all along this area. So there's a creek on one side and another, and they all converge actually like under the trail here and over to the top. And then we will see the reservoir at the top and the massive amount of water that's flowing because it's been so wet recently. Mm-hmm. So it really is exciting to kind of come during different seasons because you see different things. In the winter, this is all icicles. It still flows, but there's beautiful icicles all falling down it. So it's pretty spectacular any time of year.
So you can see the difference in the reservoir here is that the fish can come upstream to the bottom of the
highest part of the summer, it's still flowing, but it's more of a trickle. And we'll head up that way shortly, but this is the best vantage point of the whole the spillway and the creek that comes.
So you can see the difference in the reservoir here is that the fish can come upstream to the bottom of the spillway, I guess it's called, and that's as far as they can go because it's not, it doesn't have the access for fish to go any farther upstream. So the fish will be, you know, basically staying, going up and coming back and using this area as their habitat. Okay, we're going to have to probably get up there quick because I think yeah. Yeah, we better get some shots up there
Before you get rained out.
Well, you don't want to hurt the kids. No.
Are we miking Heather up or are we?
We can.
Okay, Heather, so we've been walking a little bit into Mill Creek and we've reached the dam.
Yes.
We're going to take a walk up these brand new beautiful stairs that they have there. Do you want to lead us on our way?
Sure, absolutely. So you'll see a lot of these bridges are newly built. So they did have temporary ones in when they originally opened up the park quite a few years ago, but because of just growth, they're going to have to expand the trail size and also the bridge size to accommodate visitors, but also to accommodate their own traffic, so they can come and clean. They can keep an eye on what's happening in their park. So it's going to get a little louder as we get closer because again the water is definitely flowing over the spillway today just because of the high rains and stuff we've had for the last week or so. So you'll see as we get a little closer, there's some people here, and you'll see basically logs and stuff that end up getting trapped on top of the spillway, and those are logs that of course come from the sides of the reservoir. Over time they fall in, they make their way through high water to the spillway, and really right now there's no way of getting them off because just like in Irishtown, right now anyway, there's no recreation in this water body yet. There probably will be down the road. They'll want to put a launch pad so that people can canoe because it has a beautiful water body at the top, but for now it is off water or off rights for recreation. So we're going to go up this new walkway that actually brings you out partway across the spillway and kind of gives you a real view of the water reservoir that's at the top.
Okay, excellent. Let's take the trek up.
Let's go. Hi there. How are you? Good.
Side. Is there fish on this side? Like
Yes,
above
there
the
is.
dam? Okay.
Yes, there is, absolutely. And some, you know, if they get a little too close to the water that's raging over the, the top of the spillway today, they might end up down in the stream. But yes, there is. There absolutely is. Now, we haven't done a fish study here. I expect that's probably in their plan, is to look at what species of fish might be here. But I have seen bald eagle and osprey in this park, and you'll see them nesting in those white pines. So again, those taller species of conifers that are next to the shoreline is where you would see the bald eagle. And up in the corner, we can't see it here, but we'll see it when we get up at the top. It's kind of like a bit of a meadow into a wetland. Many great blue herons. So we know there's got to be little sticklebacks and smaller species of fish to keep them here because they would only stay here if there was a food supply. So it definitely does have fish for the wildlife that do surround this natural forest.
Excellent. Earlier, when we were at the Petitcodiac River, we talked about the idea that people call it the chocolate river and the silt. This also has a very brown color to the water. Can you talk a little bit about why that is?
Well, I suspect it's from over time. And again, this is an older reservoir as well. Although you don't see any impact really other than the water coming up and down when you have rain events. So it's probably natural erosion that is causing the brown water to be here. And again, it could be high in nutrients, and that is something that the different groups will do water quality as well when they do their fish study to see what the quality of the water is, and that would all be part of an impact study they do before they would think about putting in canoes and having it available for recreation, which I suspect will come down the road.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make our way to the top and go see the amazing place lookout.
Yeah, Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, because look where you had to come before. I mean, I was bringing everybody up that rock, but
Really?
oh yes, because they wanted to come the good way. So it's like, well, we have to come up where everybody else goes. Why take the easy route?
Right, these stairs are amazing.
That's funny.
Now we can.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll come over to the amazing place sign, yes.
Okay.
Sure.
And there we have it.
Yes. Beautiful.
It is stunning.
So you can see how like it makes the turn and kind of goes into a more shallower type of piece in the reservoir, and that's where you usually see the great blue herons and so on, right up into that vegetation.
Now, the Navy base that trained here, that was before the town of Riverview was even a town, correct?
Absolutely. It was a long, long time ago. And they actually, I don't know, but I heard from some of the older gentlemen out here as well that they skated on the reservoir.
Oh, no way.
Yes, because again,
I believe
it's
that.
at their, it was at their beck and call right in their backyard. So as part of their recreation, they skated on the reservoir, which would have been cool. And one thing for those that maybe haven't been here in the winter, the town of Riverview gets a certified group to snowshoe, and they do a design on the reservoir. And they do like a drone flyover to show what it looks like from the air, and it's spectacular. It's just an added feature for what can be seen out here in the different seasons in the Mill Creek Nature Park.
And it's always such an amazing spot for that, because you have this vantage point where we're standing right now to look down at the design that they make. Because a lot of places where they would do that, you wouldn't have the vantage point to look
No.
and see. You have to wait for the drone, but here
Yes,
you can come and
see
watch
it
them
yourself.
do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they've done it a few winters, and it's become so popular that it will probably become an annual event that they will do. And the trails now, like when we go out, we can probably look at a trail map, but they go the whole way around the water body. So it does give people the option to do like a loop if they want, or go the whole way around the actual water body, which is lovely.
That will be done in the fall.
In the fall,
In the
okay.
Can't quite get around.
Okay, perfect. And I'm going to show I think the signs over here, the amazing places sign, so you see what it looks like.
That's right. We want everybody to know what they're looking for.
Right. So similar to what we've seen on the T-shirt, the same sort of logo with what the Vantage Point offers, and then the different partners on the bottom. Because really, like Jennifer said, we couldn't do it without the partners to be able to showcase what the Fundy Biosphere region has to offer.
And do you know why it's got the name Belvedere Mill? Jen?
It's because at the time we wanted, It's because at the time we were trying to do bilingual signage, and so it's Belvedere Mill Creek, which is
Oh,
okay.
okay.
in French.
Oh, it's
Mill Creek Lookout.
Yeah.
So
Oh, so Belvedere means lookout.
yeah.
exactly. Yep. And then so there's the French or the English explanation of the site, and then the French explanation of the site as well. But with a lot of place names like Mill Creek, there's also words in French, obviously, for mill and creek, but this is a place name, and so the Mill Creek part is in English and French, both words, but Belvedere is French for lookout.
Oh.
Lookout.
I was thinking it was going to be a person that we
Yeah,
could,
me
like,
too.
it's like, oh, there's another name for this area, but no.
Excellent. Anything else you want us to mention about the site?
Just that the beauty of this spot being high in elevation really does give you an opportunity to see, the elevation of this property, right? Instead of it just being on the trail. And this area here is used for a lot of different activities, like you can see today. There's different clubs that use this spot, and they can use it day and night. They used to have a fire pit, which they will restore. And so that you can do evening events. We've done some stargazing events out here in the summer and the fall, which are lovely. And this covered patio is really wonderful for having little events in case the weather is inclement. So they've really, you know, they've really made this one spot. I'm sure there'll be many more to showcase the beauty that Mill Creek Nature Park has.
How far does Mill Creek span? The river itself.
That's a good question.
I love stumping you.
That you do.
It's like that doesn't
And
happen often with
I
Heather.
think you've done it. I'm going to have to research that.
all
Yes, we might have to cut that out.
No problem. No problem.
Perfect.
Yep.
Jump back in the shot.
Get in
then.
between so you can play off of her mic.
So the other part of Mill Creek that's pretty special to the Fundy Biosphere region is that we're developing this park as a Wabanaki Forest Museum, like an open air sort of arboretum that describes the indigenous names of all of the native trees of this region. And so over the course of time, with a partnership with our indigenous partners, we have translated all of the Wabanaki or Acadian forest tree species. And in Mill Creek, we're set to put out signs on various trees that we're considering heritage trees. So some of the largest, most significant, the oldest trees that are in the area. But as you can imagine, since colonization, there has been a significant change in the landscape and the forest type. And so we're also actively replanting trees that are not on the landscape as much anymore. For example, butternut is a tree species of the Wabanaki forest, which is actually an endangered species. And so the forest is actually not what we would typically have if it was left untouched. It's much more diverse here in Mill Creek because it's a nature park and because it has been untouched for quite a number of years, but it's not the same as the actual like totally pristine landscapes that haven't yet been forested. So over the course of time and throughout this fall, we'll have signage on some of the oldest trees, like
So our white
a
pine.
beautiful white pine over there, and many others. And then we're actively planting trees that you can't find as like representatives of in this area. And Mill Creek is quite diverse, so we do have some of the like more boggy areas that we can plant black spruce, or we have like riverside or like sort of water's edge that we can plant different types of species. And then we have sort of the uplands that are here, which are a little more dry. So it really can give an sort of a full picture of what the Wabanaki or Acadian forest looks like, and then people can learn the Mi'kmaq names of those trees, but also the French and English name, and then the species or the binomial nomenclature, the Latin name of those species as well. So that's coming very shortly.
And the reason that's good is because we're seeing our seasons change. For someone like myself that is in the forest almost every day and have been for probably my entire life, the seasons are changing and we are becoming warmer. So what they're doing here and planting those species that used to be here, like especially the hardwood species like the butternut and the walnut and so on, they used to grow here, and the elm as well. So to reintroduce them back into the forest, knowing that we are shifting towards a warmer climate, is really being proactive, because some of these won't be here maybe in the next 50 or 100 years, but those longer lived species, if we can put them in now, then they'll have a really good start to get growing and then take over from some of those older ones that'll start to die back as time goes on.
It is really remarkable when you are in the space and you feel like you're in the middle of a giant forest, but you're actually in the center of town.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
almost center of town.
Yeah.
Soon to be, I'm sure, if it keeps
Well, and
growing.
that's another thing that makes this park special, as well as Irishtown Nature Park, is they're really focused on nature. And obviously the interaction and the opportunity for recreation of nature. But there's some really great people in all of the municipalities and partners that are with those municipalities who are like identifying assets in our municipalities, like Centennial Park. It's quite developed, but that has a purpose. Well, this also is, it has trails, but the intention is not to develop it to a certain extent because it's that connection with nature. And so looking at the parks as park assets as a region and deciding what development should happen in them has really supported this and Irishtown Nature Park to stay more pristine and more of a nature park focus, because people are losing that opportunity to, this is pretty special to be able to walk a few minutes from your house or bike 5 minutes from your house and get pretty close into the middle of a forest and see quite a bit of diversity in like a safe way that's wheelchair and stroller accessible. Like, it's a pretty special thing that the town of Riverview has really got behind and invested in. So it's one of our amazing places.
And I again, on my side, being an educator, having this forest to be able to bring people and educate them on the different trees, the plants, what grows here, and what grows different from habitat to habitat is really a special thing to have. So for it to be an amazing place and one that we bring visitors and newcomers alike to visit and explore, I think it's wonderful that Riverview is taking this initiative and saving their forests for, you know, recreation, education, and people just to get out in nature, like you say, and be that close to home that they can go. They don't have to jump in their car and drive somewhere. They can come from home. So it's lovely.
Absolutely. Well, that's an excellent first episode.
I think so. Definitely, we've seen some amazing places, and I can't wait to see more.
Well, thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you for sharing it with us.
Soon. Let's.
Absolutely. Thank you.